All right, peeps, on today's episode of the Kung Fu Genius, the genius will be answering all sorts of hot nonsense from YouTube. Lots of gems, lots of high kicks in Kung Fu, lots of all the bobs in the world cannot hold down a thrashing Bruce Lee in a hospital. Let's get to it.
And every day, I practice martial arts. Watch out!
Yo, Dre, how you doing, man?
I'm ready.
Is that the normal way you respond? That's crazy. I think it's been so long since we did one of these.
It's been so long.
I feel a little bit out of practice.
I way out.
Like a cactus wearing scented prophylactics. All right, so here we go. We're here for another regular episode. All right, what's up with that? What's up with that? All right.
Why?
And we've done a couple. We've done a couple lives. I did two with Sifu Topher.
Yes.
And then we did one together
One
last
with
week.
Sifu Dre.
Yeah. So
How the hell did he get in there?
I don't know how he got in there.
Snuck in back door action.
Yeah. And but it was a lot of fun. I mean, I like the lives. The energy is quite different because
different.
when we shoot these, we come in on a Saturday morning. It's just
There's no disruptions.
We can except for you. You are the disruption. But we can kind of we can record these in a more relaxed environment that's not as frantic as when we do the live and we got all the live comments coming in and I feel like I got to keep up. But there is something about the lives that I do appreciate and so I think maybe we may end up doing some more of those.
You know what I appreciate about the lives?
What?
Them donations. The
Donations.
best nation.
The best nation of all the nations.
Yes,
the donations.
the donations.
Yeah, that's also great too. And people still seem to
Shout
watch
out to all those donations.
Yeah, absolutely.
The donators.
Thank you to everyone.
For
who,
Rhythm Nation myself.
Rhythm Nation.
Oh, yeah.
All right.
Ooh.
So here we are doing a regular Ask Me Anything standard format KFG episode
Feels
for the
like
first
it's
time
been
in a
so long.
dog's age.
Yeah.
But before we get started, just want to remind everyone that if you want to
What you
support
wanna
the
remind?
Kung Fu Genius podcast, you can support us on Patreon for as little as $5 a month. You get access to episodes early. As well as other little goodies like my Instagram subscriber only stuff. And then sometimes I will make some Patreon only videos. I actually released one publicly here on YouTube so people could kind of see what those are like. And some people were like, oh, thanks for releasing the Patreon stuff here. It's like, no, just that one.
It's just a little.
Yeah, otherwise, what's the point of having a Patreon, right? That was just to give people an idea of the kind of questions that I answer through from Instagram and Patreon, specifically for those audiences. So, yeah, and for as little as $5 a month, you can get that. Other levels of support, you can get other little goodies as well. So there is that. And before we get into questions, I want to talk about something that I'm kind of excited about. Now, as you know,
You're always excited about something, though.
I have, but rarely am I excited about a Bruce Lee book.
Oh.
Mainly because, well, one, I have all of them, and there are not that many coming out. Like, there are not that many new Bruce Lee books coming out.
Right.
One of the more recent ones was the one by Dr. James Bishop.
Do you have like a dedicated bookshelf?
Yeah.
To all the Bruce Lee books you have? Because there's got to be many.
I do it. I have my books on my shelf are like by section. So I have all like the Wing Chun books are subdivided. Like I have all the Leung Ting stuff, all the Wong Sun Leung stuff. Like I have everything in like groupings, right? So it's really easy for me to go there and find, I want to see Sifu David Peterson's book. So I know exactly where the Wong Sun Leung books are on my shelf. Or I want to, see the stuff from John Little. I know where all the John Little books are. So, there's not that many new books coming out about Bruce Lee. We had the Dr. James Bishop book about the source book for the Tao of Jeet Kune Do. We had him on the podcast here.
Yeah, cool episode.
But one of our commenters, and I apologize, I don't remember who it was like, yo, KFG, have you read La Muerte de Bruce Lee? The Death of Bruce Lee. And I was like...
I remember this comment.
Yeah, and I was like, no. He's like, oh, this guy put together a book, which is all of the... it's essentially all of the public records in regards to Bruce Lee's death. So it has, all the information from the interviews that came from like the various depositions with Raymond Chow, Linda Lee, and Betty Ting Pei, the newspaper stuff, but also things like the autopsy, toxicology reports. He went to Hong Kong and got access to all these records and basically put them all in a book. Now, the book is interesting in that it's in Spanish and in English.
Yeah.
So one page will be English and the other page will be a Spanish translation, which is actually good because then I can improve my Spanish a little bit too because it's a topic I'm actually interested in.
Work on that.
My Spanish is awful.
Yeah.
And but what's nice about the book came out, I think, around 2020. 2021. I think it's 2020. So it actually predates the drug letters, unfortunately.
A lot of books came out in 2020.
Yeah, it's unfortunate because I think the drug letters did change a lot of things about perspective, right? We have, and that's always been the problem with Bruce Lee's death, as it is the problem with anything that we speculate on. We have information, but we don't have perspective. We don't know what that information actually means, or if certain aspects of that information even mean anything at all. We have information, but we don't have perspective. And that's a problem. And that's generally our issue whenever we're trying to discuss something that's unknown. Right. But I think with Bruce Lee's death, that's especially true, that we know a lot of stuff now. And the drug letters have kind of added to that, but they haven't necessarily... Nothing has come in and been like this mic drop. Now, what's incredible about the book is it basically goes into the May 10th collapse, which Bruce had, and then obviously his death on July 20th of the same year. And it has all the doctor's notes. In the back, it even has the handwritten notes from, it's either probably Riseborough. So I think it's the doctor who did his autopsy. It's got his handwritten notes. It's got all the stuff from the weight of his brain and all that stuff. Now, a lot of these things...
How much did his brain weigh?
Well, it weighed more because of the cerebral edema, because of the swelling. I mean, to be fair, I've actually already seen a lot of the things that are in this book.
Okay.
But I got one piece of that here, and I got this thing from this guy, and I got this thing from this guy.
Scattered.
So scattered, but this is like all in one place.
Yeah.
And still, there were a lot of things in the book that I didn't know. And what's great about it is that, well, it consolidates all the information. So when you have some stuff about this here and some stuff about this there, you have to keep that in your mind to remember, like, oh, yeah, right, this doctor came 45 minutes later because I read that there. But now you have it all in one narrative.
Anything in a book that made you go, oh.
Yes, as a matter of fact. So anyway, for those of you who are watching us on YouTube, this is the book right here. Yeah. I apologize for those of you who are listening to us on audio. Right. It is a photo of Bruce Lee from Way the Dragon, looking somewhat suspicious, and he's kind of looking a little bit to the right, like sus, things that make you go right. And as you can see, I started reading. I just got the book a couple days ago.
All right.
So when you look at it here, you see I've already filled it full of notes and stuff. And the reason why this side doesn't have any notes is because that's the Spanish side. Right. So it's not like I only made notes on one half of the book and then skipped the other one. Right.
Got it.
So what I thought was really interesting, because we all know that Bruce Lee suffered this collapse on May 10th at Golden Harvest Studios. And, the basic version of that story was that he was in the dubbing studio, dubbing for Enter the Dragon. Because there were a couple, I guess, ADR lines and a couple of... bits of dialogue that needed to be redubbed.
ADR lines, what is that?
ADR is like when you don't record audio during the movie, but then you need like a throwaway line like, hey, Jim, look over there. You know what I mean? And then what they'll do is they'll record, that's called ADR. I forget what ADR actually is, audio something recording.
All right.
Right? So that's why you can sometimes tell in movies when something was ADR'd, because you'll hear like, the audio, especially in older films, not so much in newer films. Sometimes the audio is like a little bit louder than the regular one. It's like a random line. You don't see the person saying it, and that's ADR. So I think he was doing basically some ADR and some dubbing for the various.
It's like the narration in my brain. It's
exactly.
A bunch of ADR.
Yeah, all in different volumes. All right. I don't even want to know what it sounds like in your brain. So
no, true. You don't want to know.
So what was interesting is, okay, so he's in the recording studio. It's May, which is hot as hell in Hong Kong. And of course
it's a recording studio.
And it's a small recording studio. From what I gathered from reading, there's like a little couch in there.
Hot ass couch.
Yeah, he's got his mic, and of course they have to turn the AC off, because you can't have that in the background with the sound, right? Because otherwise you're gonna hear. And you can imagine what AC sounded like in 1973. They're not like the smooth modern ACs of today. Those things are very loud,
like the
as
one
hell,
we had
right?
downstairs.
Exactly, right.
All right.
So he has to work in this enclosed soundproof room. Do you remember how hot our soundproof studio got downstairs?
Yeah.
Right? Especially in those summer months, right? So imagine something like that, but we're talking Hong Kong heat. And he started to basically feel faint, and then he went out, and it wasn't always clear. He went out to a break room, he went out to the bathroom.
Went out to get air.
he kind of stumbled, and he says that, or he had said that he didn't faint. He just kind of like slumped down. And when some employees came to see what he was doing, he even admitted to Linda that he was on the floor.
He slid down the wall or something.
No, he was on the floor, and when they came in, he said he pretended like he was looking for his glasses, but he was actually kind of slumped. So even Bruce Lee admitted that to Linda. It was in Bruce Lee, the Man Only I Knew, in that book. So that was like something that she even said. And then he gets up. He
played
goes,
it off.
He goes to back to the studio and then collapses. And he essentially starts having a seizure. His teeth start chattering. He starts having spasms. He vomits his spaghetti lunch, and everyone is like, "Oh, yeah," which is fun. And that was like, and I was like, "Wow, Bruce Lee eats spaghetti." It was like you look at his body type and you go, "Bro, carbs." Like, what? But Bruce was also so skinny at that time of his life. Right? He went to Hong Kong at about 140 pounds, and at this time, by late 72 and certainly by 73, I mean, he was lucky to hold 120 pounds of weight. So you can imagine maybe he's trying to bulk up eating things like spaghetti and stuff because he just cannot keep weight.
You remember the last time you weighed 125?
Last time I weighed 125, my balls still hadn't dropped yet.
Right, I was 13 or something, man.
Yeah, no.
I remember getting on the scale and seeing that. Like,
it's been a hot minute.
125.
It's been a hot minute since I was 125 pounds, right?
Crazy. What about you, Mike?
He was 125 last week.
Yeah, no comment. I'm twice 125.
There
250?
Yeah, no, I'm not 250. I'm not 125.
Yeah.
It's been a long
I don't
time.
even remember.
You've never been to 120? You skipped
Everyone,
that.
Somewhat.
You
Skip that one.
past
You
it.
jumped that shit.
Someone teach Dre how physics works. All right?
Unbelievable.
Okay, so anyway, he was probably eating, maybe he was eating stuff like that because he's trying to gain weight, right?
Meatballs.
So he has a seizure. One of the sound techs, Zhao Fukwing. All right, the names of these guys are all in there.
Zhao Fukwing.
He put put a spoon in Bruce Lee's mouth,
Chow.
which is like to keep him from biting his tongue. And then it took four of these dudes to once Raymond Chow came, four of these dudes to pick him up and bring him to the car, and then they drove him to Baptist Hospital.
He was 120, but still heavy as.
I think the problem was that he was
dead weight.
That one, he would be dead weight, and then he would start thrashing because he was having a seizure.
Yeah.
So and what's interesting is as Bruce Lee fans, we've all heard about the May 10th collapse, and anyone who really has looked into his death at all can't help but realize the May 10th incident and the July 20th incident are almost the same. Maybe without the seizures, all right? But we don't even know that. Maybe and most likely without the vomiting as well. But Bruce died of cerebral edema, which is swelling of the brain. And on May 10th, Bruce Lee had cerebral edema, swelling of the brain. So he had an identical incident on 2 days. All right. It's what I find most fascinating about it is that we have all the details of the May 10th occurrence because you have all these witnesses there, Raymond Chow, the Golden Harvest employees, the doctor, everyone. And then after that, he went and he got checked out. We have a lot less details of what exactly happened on July 20th because that stuff happened in the confines of 67 Beacon Hill Road, Betty's place. So we don't know how much leading up to Bruce's death on that day was identical to the May 10th thing.
Right.
But one thing we do know, he died on July 20th of the thing he had on May 10th.
I'm sure Raymond Chow had to carry some of that weight after Bruce Lee passed because he's seen the May 10th. He was there for both. And he's like, I could have done something back in May 10th. I could have helped him.
Well, no, to be fair,
Maybe.
Raymond Chow kind of did save him on May 10th. I mean, he was the one who came in and brought him to the doctor right away.
Right.
It was, in my opinion, Betty Ting Pei's dilly-dallying and waiting and freaking out and worrying about, what are the paparazzi going to think? And what are they going to think when the hospital, the ambulance comes here or whatever? And then she just waited and waited, freaking out, calling private doctors rather than calling ambulance, right?
She didn't want that to come to light.
Yeah, I mean,
it's
it's not Betty's fault that Bruce Lee had what he had. But I definitely think she didn't help by dilly-dallying around and waiting so many hours before finally getting someone over there who could do something, right? So that's why we don't know damn mistresses, damn Taiwanese mistresses. So
They always
mess stuff up,
mucking
right?
it up.
All right. So, of course, that's the basic story. He vomited, he had a seizure, he saw Dr. Langford. Interesting. So what's great about this book is it has all the interviews with Dr. Langford from like the depositions, which I've read.
How?
But because that stuff's public record.
Okay.
But what he does is he puts it in a narrative as everything happens in order. So you don't have to like read this thing in the deposition over here and then read this thing over here. You can like see chronologically how everything happens because he takes from all the sources and puts it in order. And that's the great thing about this book is that you can now see all of these bits of information that we knew about Bruce Lee's death as a narrative.
This guy is amazing.
Yeah, Spanish, what's his name? Marcos Ocaño Rizzo. All right, so shout out to Marcos Ocaño Rizzo. Awesome, really awesome work.
Should get him on the show.
Yeah, maybe we'll have him on the show. Would have been perfect if he just waited 2 years for the drug letters to come out. And then, because I'm curious.
Patience.
What, if anything, that would have changed about some of the information in here, right? But what I like about it is he doesn't put his opinion on the info. That is the great thing about this book, because everyone...
It's all factual.
A lot of... well, it's just the facts as they are available.
Yeah.
All right? We don't know if everyone who was interviewed was speaking the truth, but he's just putting it there. And he's not saying, ergo... heat stroke, all right? Ergo, toxic marijuana shot, whatever. Like, he's not saying, therefore, this is the conclusion. He has absolutely no conclusion in this book. So it's up to you. It's like, here's all the info. I'll let you deal with it, right? But I appreciate that because really, when it comes to Bruce Lee's death, we know that he died of cerebral edema. We don't know exactly what... The whole thing about what caused Bruce Lee's death is what caused the cerebral edema. Was it some weird reaction to cannabis? Seems unlikely. Yeah. Was it some side effect of his regular cocaine use? We don't know. Was it something else? Did Bruce Lee have a neurological issue? What was it? Now, interestingly enough, what I like, I've only read like the first bits because there's a book I'm reading very slowly because I'm taking notes, stopping, looking things up. Reading, taking notes, looking. So it's not a book that you like burn through. It's almost like a reference book because it's got lots of references to medical stuff and things like that you have to look at. But what's really interesting is it has the whole narrative of what happened on May 10th, and that's essentially as far as I've read. And we all knew the basic story of May 10th: the collapse at the dubbing studio, getting rushed to the hospital. He had brain swelling. They gave him mannitol. He left a few days later. He was okay. He went to LA, got checked out. They said he was fine. But now that I can actually read in detail what happened on May 10th, May 10th was horrific. I was reading this going, holy crap. Yeah, cerebral edema is serious. We all knew that he had a serious event there. But when you actually hear the details... It's horrific, Dre. No, it's horrific, Dre. He basically would have died on that day, 100%. It was very lucky that he did not die on May 10th. So So we have, he goes back to the studio, he collapses, he vomits, he has a seizure. The sound tech puts the spoon in his mouth. 4 dudes, Raymond Chow comes, 4 dudes carry him. They get him into the car. Bruce is still in and out of consciousness. He's having trouble breathing. He stops breathing for periods of time. And he's still kind of like thrashing about. They get him to Baptist Hospital and to see Dr. Langford, who is a doctor that Bruce Lee... So what I didn't realize is I thought Dr. Langford was just the dude at the hospital, but he was actually a doctor that Bruce Lee had already seen. And Dr. Langford treated Linda, and he also treated Brandon. Apparently Brandon, he even said Brandon once got his hand caught in a folding chair and had to go and saw Dr. Langford. And that was the first time that Dr. Langford met Bruce Lee. And he said he didn't know who Bruce Lee was then. He just said... Brandon's father was a very intelligent and muscular Chinese man, right? And that was like, it was so funny. Like he mentioned not knowing who Bruce Lee is, and it's like he was, because imagine, you remember how Bruce Lee spoke English. He spoke English quite eloquently. He had a really fantastic vocabulary and, was also obviously someone who thought about things. So he was a very impressive person to speak to. And if you didn't know that this is like Bruce Lee, you would be like, wow, this is a very impressive person. Not like, yeah, no shit, he's a movie star. Like this guy's famous for a reason. He just didn't know that he was famous, right? And then he eventually started treating Bruce Lee for, various injuries that Bruce Lee had from, filming his movies and stuff. So he knew Bruce Lee. Wow. And when they when Raymond Chow called Dr. Langford was about to leave. His shift was over. It was around 5 p.m. And Bruce Lee arrived, and Dr. Langford, of course, was going to stay to treat Bruce Lee. And apparently they seemed to be in between shifts, where when Bruce Lee came, there weren't enough doctors on hand. There wasn't like enough people there to help Dr. Langford.
The changeover is crazy.
Yeah.
Wow.
So, and he said, and this is totally crazy and somewhat infuriating, the 4 employees from Golden Harvest dropped Bruce Lee off to Dr. Langford and got the F out of there. Like, we don't want anything to do with this, which I found kind of strange and kind of like, maybe they're worried they're going to be held responsible, even though they're just the dudes who brought him there. But he basically said he was then suddenly alone with a Bruce Lee having a seizure and fits with very little help there, and those guys pieced out. And and it goes through the details of how he was trying to examine Bruce and how Bruce would stop breathing, and then he's using that bag they used to do back in the day to get the breathing going and everything. And he tried to intubate Bruce Lee, like put the tube in his throat, and he says Bruce was thrashing about, and he was like, they got 4 other guys in there.
Okay.
And Bruce was essentially
holding on limbs.
Yeah, but Bruce was not conscious. He was thrashing about. And he said they literally couldn't control him.
It's like Arnold in Total Recall.
Yeah, exactly. Well, I mean, to be fair, I think look, if you are thrashing about, and it's very difficult to control anyone. It's not because he was Bruce Lee or something like that.
But it's Bruce Lee thrashing.
Yeah, but it's Bruce Lee thrashing, right? And they had to actually tape his legs and arms to the bed. And then
duct tape.
Yeah, and force the tube down his throat and everything. And Bruce was sweating. He had no color. His signs were absolute crap. And Dr. Langford more or less was like, he's gonna die. He's gonna die. Wow. And the problem was he knew Dr. Langford was very smart. He knew this was neurological, and he suspected it was specifically cerebral edema. But he's not a specialist in it. So he had to call Dr. Peter Wu, who was a neurosurgeon from another hospital. And Peter Wu came over 45 minutes later. And Peter Wu was
in an Uber.
Yeah, in an Uber in 73.
Yeah.
Right? And Peter Wu confirmed that it was cerebral edema. They gave him the injection of mannitol. They did all that stuff. And then they had to move Bruce to St. Teresa's Hospital because there weren't any beds at Baptist University Hospital. So, and I didn't even do it justice, okay? When you read the narrative of May 10th and Dr. Langford basically in there more or less alone with a dying Bruce Lee who's thrashing about, you go, holy shit. What, like, but then you also realize, like, people always talk about, like, heroes and what it means to be heroic and stuff, and it's like, dude, if you're a doctor that works in a hospital in an emergency room, I mean, come on.
Yeah.
Who's more of a hero than those people? Who's more of a hero than nurses who deal with this guy? Because you're reading it and you're going like, he was a professional and he did what he had to do. But if anyone else is in this situation for whatever reason, like, you would be so overwhelmed with fear. And like that these guys just are like, okay, they go and they do it. He calls the neurosurgeon, and think this is in time before smartphones. Communication wasn't, you need to call the hospital. The guy needs to be there, then drive over. It's not like now you just text someone and it's like, yo, come here right now, right? It's not like that. So,
I was going to say there's at least one person that could count as a hero that's done all sorts of different jobs across his, like Johnny Sins.
Johnny Sins,
Back to Johnny Sins. Unbelievable.
Who is this Johnny Sins?
Yeah.
Dude, he's been a fireman. He's been a doctor.
Is it the blonde guy?
Yes. But the other thing was that while all this stuff was going on, Dr. Langford suspected drugs.
Wow.
Okay, and then later when Bruce
Because
finally
he's seen so many cases similar.
Yeah. So when Bruce Lee finally came to and he talked to him, Bruce admitted that he had taken cannabis. But we know from the drug letters that Bruce was doing much more than that. So I have a feeling. I have a feeling that Bruce was relatively open with the things he was doing, but he didn't talk about that.
Who do you think Bruce told that he was on coke?
I don't know. Well, certainly Linda knew, but because she wrote half the letters.
Yeah, well, I'm sure there's someone else that knew.
No, for sure there were other people that know.
He did coke with people.
Yeah, we don't know that. No, we don't know that. That's speculation. Now you just stepped over into speculation territory. But you can't do that.
Yeah,
all right, because now you're guessing and you're stating it as fact.
Check this out.
It's not.
Check this out. If I'm a cokehead.
Yeah, but still, everything you're saying is if. So you can say maybe he did, but you cannot say that for sure.
Someone offers me coke, I'm with him all the way.
Yeah,
let's do it.
but that doesn't mean that happened. Well, like what does anything that just came out of your mouth have to do with anything that happened in 73? Nothing.
See, he's really ignoring that whole thing about speculation.
Yeah, exactly. I literally go to speculation. He goes, no, let me come up with some conjecture and speculation.
Yeah.
So this is exactly the problem of Bruce Lee's death. It's the problem of speaking about any controversial topics online, is that people, there's that limit of, okay, these are the facts. This is my speculation, and this is just me interpreting the data in a way that seems interesting. Once you step over that line,
that's it.
Yeah, but the problem is, anytime you have a public platform, like we have the podcast or whatever, most people who have that, they usually step over the line. And then those speculations and judgments based on their interpretation of cherry picking the data is the next thing that becomes clickbait on YouTube. And it's like, you got to stop. Dr. Langford said he suspected drugs. Damn. Bruce told him he was taking cannabis. He did not mention anything about cocaine. So he was not totally open and honest to his doctor about what was going on. So, but beyond that, you cannot say anything else. Anything else would be speculation. So anyway, that's just us. So I'm just on the May 10th stuff right now. There are photos in here. They even have photos of them taking Bruce's body out of Betty Ting's apartment in the box. Like, I'd never even seen those photos before.
In the box?
Yeah, you know, he's covered. You don't see him. But, they have the photo taking the body out of 67
they
Beacon
put him
Hill
in
Road.
A box? What kind of box?
Not a box, Dre. I mean, it's not a casket. It's like a thing that he's already dead. They're not putting him on a stretcher. It's like this. In Hong Kong, they have this, almost bamboo case that they put him in to bring them out. So it's super interesting. Yeah, super interesting.
Imagine it like a Christmas hamper, but for a person with cerebral edema.
Why Christmas hamper?
Yeah, just
I
like
had a
wicker
hamper.
basket, right?
Wicker basket.
Yes, exactly.
Okay.
Like a wicker basket. Yes.
Just for airflow.
So anyway, I'm just on that part right now. The book is fascinating. If anyone is interested in it, you can Google La Muerte de Bruce Lee or The Death of Bruce Lee. It's Marcus Ocaño Rizzo. You can only get it from one place in Spain. And it's with shipping and everything. The book's it's like $70, $80 to the States with shipping. So it's definitely, if you're a casual fan, no. But if you're a nerd, yes. So and actually they shipped it to me relatively quickly. So obviously I've skimmed through the book a couple times, and I handed it to Arnell the other day. Arnell's a nurse, and he was like, oh, he's like reading all the medical stuff, and he's like, oh, he's like, I was like,
oh, yeah.
So anyway, that's just something. It wasn't until I read this book, of course we knew the May 10th thing was serious and all that kind of stuff, but when I actually now read the account from Dr. Langford, and then what his background was to Bruce Lee, the waiting, he said Bruce Lee was essentially dead, and then you realize how horrific that whole thing was, and the word was when Bruce did die, his body was all he was all curled up, like he had been in a lot of pain. And given what happened on May 10th, you go, oh, yeah, looks like something quite similar. Damn. So anyway, that is not the happiest way to start this episode. But anyway, I thought it was very interesting.
Yeah.
And for nerds who are into Bruce Lee death stuff, go ahead and get it. It also comes with this awesome little bookmark of the book itself, which is pretty dope.
That's
so
cool.
Anyway, All right, Dre, so what do you got for me?
So what if you could transport back in time for a front row seat into the life and legacy of one of the most respected Wing Chun masters in history? Gong Sao Wong, a tribute direct students on Sifu Wong Sau Leung, offers you just that. Through a series of exclusive conversations, 25 direct students share anecdotes, reflections, and personal stories offering in-depth understanding of the man behind the legend. Order your copy today across 12 Amazon marketplaces with free shipping. I absolutely love this book, and I think you'll find it an indispensable part of your collection. I can't recommend it enough. Get yours today. Go to Amazon, type in Gong Sao Wong, and there you go.
Man, I guess we should get started with a question.
Sounds good.
Yeah.
Let's go.
All right, so first off, I'm gonna try this name. You know, I'm always good with the names, right? Joseas Vertiz.
All right.
Okay.
Yes. Yes, I think he came on to our live last week.
Oh, yeah.
Yes. And so I think that's also when he discovered us, because then the next day I found like 80 comments from him with 80 questions.
Oh, this is-
I don't know.
this is
this is like maybe
16
one of 80
combined,
questions.
it
It's
looks
like every Ask Me Anything episode we can usually get to, well, depending on the question. Some episodes we've done 1 or 2 because they're very meaty questions. And other ones we do like lightning rounds where we get through 8.
Yeah.
There's no possible way I can answer
This is a meaty one. So
all of this guy's questions in the next 10 years on this podcast.
I
all right?
apologize in advance for this meaty question, but he says, I have heard that the high kicks that Bruce Lee does in his movies are Taekwondo kicks, because in Chinese Kung Fu, they do low kicks. Is it true? And
No.
if so, did he get these kicks from Ji-Hoon Rhee or from
Jun-Rhee.
Chuck
Jun-Rhee.
Jun-Rhee? That's my bad. Ji-Hoon,
It is usually your
Ji-Hoon
bad.
is
It's not my
someone
bad.
else. Ji-Hoon is from the block. I
It's
remember Ji-Hoon.
always your bad.
So is your
Always.
Always.
Would it be
no other way.
Would it be my bad if you were the one who mispronounced it?
Definitely. You're ultimately responsible.
yes.
Okay?
I'm the one who brought
so
you in.
Jun-Rhee or from Chuck Norris and karate or Tang Sudo. Okay? Tang Sudo. Right? I saw a screen test, I think is before Green Hornet, where Bruce Lee answers questions and explains some Kung Fu and Chinese opera, and I think he does a high kick. So here, did he already learn the high kick from Chuck or TKD? Or does Kung Fu have high kicks? Also, by this time, did he already develop JKD? And does JKD have high kicks, or are the kicks in his movies just for screen because they look good?
These are like,
But not
these are
for
like
JKD
6 questions
training.
in one.
Yeah,
This
I
is-
know. He's
it's not
that
one
guy.
meaty question. These are many, 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 many questions.
Many-
all right?
This is
many
the,
slabs of meat.
This is the Brazilian steakhouse equivalent
Yes.
of questions.
Yes. Yeah, the Brazilian steakhouse, you have the green coaster. They keep bringing you the meat. When you get
Yeah.
too full, you turn it red. Halfway through, I wanted to turn it to red because
There's
we got to
more.
stop. All
There's
right?
more.
No, I can't.
So, cause they look good, but not for JKD training. Plus, I also heard some of the throws he did in some movies were Aikido. What do you think? That's the question.
This is.
What do you think?
It's the
So this is the
questions.
whole. This is the whole episode right here. Okay. This is not one question of 5 questions today. Okay. All right. So
Love it.
can you backtrack, because it's been a year since I
I
remember
just
the
literally scrolled
the
away
very
from that.
first question. All right, or the very first part. So let's do it step by step. Give me the first part.
Okay, the first part of the question. I have heard that the high kicks that Bruce Lee does in his movies are Taekwondo kicks, because in Chinese Kung Fu, they do low kicks.
Okay, stop.
Is it true?
Stop. All right, it's not true. Okay, so first of all right, I'm a bit salty with you, Dre. Do you know why I'm salty with
When
you?
have you never?
Yeah. Do
been
you know why I'm
so-
salty with you?
Which?
All right.
For what reason this time?
Because first of all, I've answered this question at least 9 times
Different-
on this podcast.
different ways.
Like you're sitting there and you're looking at me like you're waiting to see the answer, as if I haven't already told you this answer 9 times. Okay.
In his defense, he doesn't remember ever asking you that question.
This is always my defense.
Okay. So
That's my story. I'm sticking with it.
there are common tropes about martial arts which are generally accepted by people who are not, in my opinion, very deep into the martial arts. Kung Fu only has this. Taekwondo has this. Judo has this, as if these type of things, as if throwing, as if, for example, Judo or Aikido are the only martial arts that have throwing. As if Taekwondo is the only martial art that has high kicks, right? All of Kung Fu only has low kicks, right? The problem is these all-encompassing general statements about what martial arts have or don't have are by definition false, okay? Because martial arts are an expression, they're a human endeavor, and humans are always innovative, and humans change things and do things according to their own ways, their own likings. So even if you had some weird style that only had low kicks, all right, there would be one Sifu somewhere in some generation who would like throw some kicks a little higher because he could or because he liked it. And then so is he not allowed to throw kicks because that's his style? Like no one is bound by their styles, even people who claim to be super traditional and super orthodox. We're human beings. So we need to get out of this dichotomous thinking, black and white thinking. All Kung Fu has low kicks. All Taekwondo has high kicks. This throw is Aikido. This is this. And then conflating that with what Bruce Lee did in his movies, with what Bruce Lee did, and just toss that all into one big salad bowl, mix it, and then go, so can you explain that? Okay? Because it's like all the ingredients are all mixed. I don't know what you're talking about anymore. So, first of all, Kung Fu is not a style.
Got it.
Okay? Hate to break it to you. All right? Kung Fu is actually a colloquial nickname used mostly in southern China, but now it's been accepted all over China to mean martial arts. But the term itself does not, in fact, mean martial arts. It means your achievement through effort and practice. Okay? So you could have a high level of Kung Fu in anything you put time in. You could be the world's best pizza chef, and you would have a high level of bullshitting. You have a high level of Kung Fu in bullshitting. Okay? Someone could have a high level of Kung Fu in pizza making, all right? A high-level Brazilian Jiu-Jitsu expert could have a high level of Kung Fu in Brazilian Jiu-Jitsu, all right? So the term itself is a bit of a non-starter. It has colloquially become synonymous with Chinese martial arts, but it actually doesn't mean it. Martial arts in Chinese are Mo Sut in Cantonese, Wushu in Mandarin. And then there are other names for it as well. All right, Kun Fat Fist Method, or simply Kun or Pai, like family or sect or something like that. This idea that there's this rubric called Kung Fu, and everyone under that rubric follows a set of rules is absurd. All right. First of all, even within Kung Fu, you have older styles, more modern styles. You have northern, you have southern, you have internal, you have external. Now, I personally have some issues with all of these distinctions. I think some of them don't really exist in reality, and sometimes I think they are differences without a distinction. But having said that, there's a large variety of styles under what's called Kung Fu.
Okay.
If you look at my good friend Sifu Brian Cuttle perform Choi Lei Fut, and then you look at me perform the Buji form, he could perform this, some whatever his best form is in Choi Lei Fut, and I perform Buji. You can't say, oh, see, obviously it's all just Kung Fu. Yeah, you would say that you would know both of those are Kung Fu stylists, but you would not say this is the same style.
No.
Right? And you would see his moves and his kicks and my moves and the way how I do it and go, yeah, there's something different here. So we have to get out of this idea that there's a category called Kung Fu, which is a style. All right? That's already the first problem. Northern styles have tons of high kicks. All right? Wushu, both modern and traditional, have all sorts of crazy kicks. All right?
Crazy.
And even some southern styles will occasionally throw an errant high kick. So this idea that like Bruce Lee would have come to the U.S. from Hong Kong at age 18, having had fights with other martial artists, having practiced Wing Chun for a few years, and would never have seen a high kick because he came from China, and they just have never even seen something there, is the most patently absurd thing I've ever heard, right? Not to mention that there are lots of early photos of Bruce Lee, both in Seattle and in Oakland and in his early demonstrations, throwing up high kicks. All right. So this idea that Bruce was like, didn't know you can kick above the waist until he met Chuck effing Norris or Jun Rhee is it's weird, and I don't think any proper Bruce Lee fan believes that, but there is an undercurrent of that being kind of almost like accepted lore. Bruce didn't know anything about kicking high until he met Jun Ri. And it's like, where did you come with that? There's literally video footage of Bruce Lee busting out spinning high kicks, all right, at I think the very first Ed Parker tournament that he went to, right? And let's also not forget that shortly before Bruce Lee came to the States, he took some lessons from Sifu Xiu Sang, who was from the Jingwu Academy, and he taught Bruce Lee some of those fancy Kung Fu styles. So when you see that screen test that he talks about, where he goes, this is a crane form, right, and does all that stuff, that's the stuff he learned from Xiu Sang. Sorry, the Fuk Yang people who think that Fuk Yang was the one who taught Bruce Lee all that stuff. No, it was Xiu Sang, sorry. And so Bruce already knew that stuff, even if he just knew it for show. Okay, he already knew high kicks. The photos of Bruce Lee doing high kicks, and Bruce was always working on his flexibility, even in those early, quote unquote, black and white days. All right. And later he met Jun Ri, who's kind of the father of Taekwondo, at least father of Taekwondo in America, although I'm sure if Taekwondo is anything like Wing Chun and karate and any other martial art, I'm sure that there are 80 fathers of American Taekwondo. All right, so I don't want to ruffle any Taekwondo people's feathers. I'm sure there are tons of old Korean gentlemen who claim to be the father of Taekwondo. So I'm not going to get in that. If you guys want to fight about who the real father of American Taekwondo is, do it on a Taekwondo page, okay? Don't do it on my page. I will not read it. Jun Ri was a good friend of Bruce Lee's, and Bruce did exchange some ideas with him, and Jun Ri showed him some stuff about even how they broke the boards in Taekwondo and how they did the kicks. And he said Bruce picked up that stuff very, very quickly. But to think that Bruce did not know how to kick high or never saw a high kick or never did a high kick until he met Jun Ri is ridiculous. It's absolutely ridiculous. And then to think that then later it was then Chuck Norris who told me he dealt with Chuck Norris even later. Yeah. Okay. All right. So Bruce is not throwing high kicks until the late 60s. Those kicks that he was famous for in Enter the Dragon, he learned those, 3 years before? All right, get out of here, right? Yeah. Okay, so again, this idea, saying that all Kung Fu has X or Y doesn't make any sense because there are hundreds of established Kung Fu styles, all quite different from each other, and of each of those hundreds of styles, they all have subdivisions and sub-styles and sub-lineages and variations, right? So you cannot throw everything under some rubric of Kung Fu and make general statements other than it comes from a country called China. That's about the only general statement you can make about Kung Fu, all right? But to say that all Kung Fu has low kicks, Wing Chun uses low kicks. If he had said, Bruce came from Wing Chun, which doesn't kick above the waist, then that first statement would have made more sense. But to say Kung Fu, no, okay? That's crazy. That's like saying, sports don't use oblong balls for throwing. And you're like, what about football? Right? You cannot make a statement like that, right? So even though most sports use a round ball for play, but yet there are other shapes too, right? So again, like the speculation, generalizations are also a very big problem in conversation.
This is exactly why Dre picked this question, because he found a kindred spirit.
He found a kindred spirit.
Of speculation. Speculation.
Oh my God, I just spilled coffee all over myself. Listen
You
to me.
did not pull a Dre.
I pulled a little bit.
Pulled
It's a small Dre, compared to
It's
you.
a small Dre. Every time from now on when I spill something, I'm going to look at it and say, it's a small Dre.
It's just a small
Okay,
Dre.
so that was the first part. First of all, it was
that's-
okay, so now what was the second question in there?
You have a
If
chance
so.
to do a quick lightning round here as well, by the way, because you've answered probably all of this at some point.
Yeah, well, that's
so
what.
you can-
If my answer was already said, I'll just say it. But I don't want him to feel that I glossed over his question.
That is absolutely fair too.
All right, go ahead. What's the next part?
Or does he? Okay, let me just. I had to skip ahead because you already answered most of that. And so here, did he already learn high kick from Chuck or TKD, or does Kung Fu have high kicks? Also, by this time, did he already develop JKD?
Okay, but those are totally different questions. Okay, so
Yeah.
so yes, all right. He learned some high kicking and fancy kicking from Siu Hon San in Hong Kong, as I said. Bruce was also a martial artist who regularly bought books on other styles. When he was in Seattle, he would regularly travel to Vancouver, which had a very big Chinese population, and he would buy He had all these Chinese books with wushu. He had photos and books of people doing high kicks, and he would practice his stuff all the time. Remember that before Bruce Lee decided to create Jeet Kune Do, perhaps after his fight with Wong Jack Man, Bruce had a different aim in mind. He wanted to create the ultimate kung fu style. That was like his first goal. So he obviously wanted to take his Wing Chun base and then see if he could improve it by looking at what the other kung fu styles were. And it wouldn't be until a little bit later that he would say, well, I think there's some problems with Chinese kung fu as it's taught and as it's practiced. And maybe the answer doesn't have to be contained just within the Chinese styles, right?
Okay.
So there was in the very early period, he was trying to essentially, when you look at his notes from that time, it looked like he was trying to create the ultimate kung fu style, almost like an eclectic mix of the best of Chinese kung fu, right? Wow. Think about it, he was young, still very proud to be Chinese, and then later, perhaps because of his exposure to Western education and other things, he decided, well, maybe he can also look at things like boxing and fencing and other things like that, right? So yeah, that's essentially my answer to that. So what's the next part?
Very cool. Okay, and does JKD have high kicks?
Okay,
or
so-
are they
so,
the kicks in his movies
So I'm not
just for screen? Okay,
I'm not the expert to speak on what JKD has or JKD doesn't have, especially when we're talking about what Bruce Lee did. Okay?
I'm not either.
Yeah, because if we go into the whole concepts versus original JKD, well, JKD concepts can have anything as long as it follows the concept. So you could do a double jump spinning back kick in JKD concepts if you can rationalize it according to the theory, I suppose. I'm being a little sarcastic there. JKD concepts people, have a coffee and chill.
Well, he-
okay, all
he
right?
did that.
I'm not actually saying you're going to do that, all right?
Right.
So, but there are photos of Bruce Lee, with Ted Wong when he was demonstrating his JKD, where he does throw a hook kick or roundhouse kick to the head. So he does have those kind of kicks. But, it seems that when he really got down to it, it was that straight lead side kick to the knee, and some other similar kicks as well that,
reminds me of John Jones. I'm sorry.
Yeah,
but
absolutely.
I'm thinking of John Jones right
and he's fighting
right
tonight.
now. He's fighting tonight.
Yeah, which of course, when this podcast comes out, it's
Yeah.
going to be like a week later. We're going to find, he either knocked out Cyril Gahn or got knocked
Either
out by
he-
Cyril Gahn, right?
Either he beat some ass or he got that ass.
Yeah, it's going to be very interesting.
Yeah.
But you're right. John Jones definitely has, in my opinion, a very similar kicking repertoire. I'm not going to say his execution is like Bruce Lee's.
Okay.
But his ideas of kicking and using the front lead and that is really quite good.
His execution of cocaine is like Bruce Lee's, though.
Oh,
Well, we don't know that.
the speculation.
Sorry, I just did a Dre. The
speculation.
Yes, that was speculation.
That was total
Total speculation.
And I
right?
spectated that.
Yes,
For the purposes of a joke, Dre.
Right.
For the purposes of a joke.
Right.
I am so
Yeah. But one time.
bald.
But one time, Paul Vunak, who's a very famous Jeet Kune Do instructor, in one of his old school instructional videos, which I had when I was a teenager, he talked about what he called functional or real JKD and then theatrical JKD. Wow. So, things that either Bruce Lee would do in movies,
Okay.
but those aren't necessarily the things he would do in fighting, or maybe even things a Jeet Kune Do practitioner might do in a demonstration that they might not necessarily do in a real fight. Now, the thing is, in WT, in our Wing Chun lineage, we also have that stuff too.
Interesting.
We haven't done demonstrations in many years. Now with social media, it's a little different. You make videos now. In the old days, you went out on the street like a beggar at some Asian festival and did
Put on a
martial
show.
arts to put on a show.
Yeah.
Right? No one does that anymore, right?
Didn't we do that last week?
Yeah. But there are some things in Wing Chun in WT that we have where you do a double lap sao on the inside and then you kick your partner in right up on the chin, or certain ways of more theatrical ways of doing throws and stuff. That's theatrical Wing Chun for demonstration, or on that rolling log, which is kind of on those. The rollers, the foam rollers,
Okay.
But back in the days we used to do them on hard wood ones, those rollers. You would stand on it and do chi sao with someone, And then so it's like this test of balance, right? Like so that's all like theatrical
Never
stuff.
seen this.
Yeah, I've never showed you that.
No.
Yeah, maybe we do that later.
Yeah, okay.
But that's you could categorize that as theatrical Wing Chun. Now someone could look at that and go, like, you would never grab someone's arms and then kick them so high in a real fight, all right? And the moment someone says
would you do that?
The moment someone says in a real fight, they've never been in a real fight, okay? Because if you understand the difference between show and real. Well, you can do show every now and again, and it doesn't like go like, oh, I can't do something that's fancy or not functional because then people are gonna think I don't know what real fighting is. Like, calm down, buddy, calm down. Life is too short. You want to do something for fun, for show every now and again, fine.
Damn.
All right, it doesn't. If you understand the difference between real fighting and show, and you opt to do something in a showmanship kind of way. What's the harm, right? People get so bent out of shape. So that is my answer to that part. What's the next part?
Oh man, goodness. There's more. That's right.
I know.
And does it?
I spent a year here one afternoon.
And plus, I also heard some of the throws he did in some movies were Aikido.
Okay.
What do you think?
So, with the exception of some of his the trips that I saw him do in Way the Dragon, which are just very standard. You know, in Wing Chun we have the soka, the basic simple sweep trip
Wing
kind
Chun.
of thing, right? Yeah, you have that in Wing Chun, but most martial arts have some kind of simple outside trip sweep. All right,
Yeah.
that's not like the domain of only
very
Wing Chun,
practical
right?
in a
yeah,
sense,
or
yeah.
like a simple, sometimes an outside trip, right? So he does a couple of those, I think, in Way the Dragon and some of his other movies. I wouldn't say that's necessarily Aikido. I would say that is either from his Wing Chun training, or you could almost call that pan martial arts. It's like something that a lot of martial arts have. It's almost generic.
In the year I've studied Aikido, I've never seen anything like that.
But there were a couple things like in Fists of Fury where he kind of does some like simple tosses where the people kind of go. That's theatrical. I don't understand the whole thing with.
It looks great on camera.
Yeah, but who's conflating what Bruce Lee does when he's fighting 20 extras in Fists of Fury with his actual Jeet Kune Do? Like when you look at Bruce Lee's notes and when you look at how he discussed what Jeet Kune Do is, and you look at what people like Dan Inosanto or Ted Wong, you look at like legit Jeet Kune Do people do, right? Grandmaster Baxter. Who then looks at Fists of Fury and then goes, oh, this is also what Bruce Lee did in Jeet Kune Do. It's like, no, dude, that's movie choreography. Bruce was the first one to admit it, and anyone who thinks knows that that's just choreography, right? Yes, there are a couple times when Bruce does some Wing Chun, on Bob Baker in Fists of Fury, on Chuck Norris in Way of the Dragon, against Bob Wall in Enter the Dragon. But honestly, if you cut those 3 bits out, he almost does no Wing Chun in any of his movies. Yeah, a couple stop kicks here and there, whatever, fine. But it's all theatrical. Big old John Wayne punches and spinning kicks and stuff like that. That's not his Jeet Kune Do, and that's not Wing Chun. And no one ever claimed it was. So I always think it's weird when people look at what Bruce did in the movies from the default position of that being his art of Jeet Kune Do. And you go, dude, this isn't the 70s, 80s anymore. We have a lot more, like no one actually believes that, right? So no, that Bruce, a couple times I think he just grabbed someone's head and the guy goes flying, right? Yeah, I think Bruce Lee would have been the first person to tell you that wouldn't work in a real fight. All right. Is there anything else appended
I think
to that question?
that was it. That's the end of that question.
Finally.
What do you think?
I need a cigarette.
How would you like to go to Hong Kong with the Kung Fu Genius from August 21st to the 27th, 2023? Experience Hong Kong like no one else. Take the ultimate Hong Kong Kung Fu tour with live commentary from yours truly, the Kung Fu Genius. Visit hot tourist spots as well as off the beaten path locations, perfect for Wing Chun and martial art enthusiasts. If you ever wanted to go to Hong Kong to see Wing Chun sites, movie stuff, and of course experience this amazing city, here's your perfect opportunity. Packages include 7 days of seeing the sights with me as your guide, and for those who want some training, a Wing Chun seminar with me and with Sifu Mak Chi Kong is part of one of the offers. The packages include the best insider tour of Hong Kong you can possibly get. To reserve your spot, click on the link in the description of this episode for all the information you need and for booking. Spots are running out fast, so get yours today. Once I reach the cap, I will close the registration, so don't wait. Again, click that link in the description to get booked for the 2023 Ultimate Hong Kong Kung Fu Tour. And I'll see you in Hong Kong.
Okay, what's the next question?
Next question we have Dre Ison.
No. No. You come back. You just thought, would you just like come back after all this time, like just like nothing's happened, and then it's just like.
Okay.
He didn't even scroll though. It's just like
It's scroll.
He's just pointing
it's on the
awkwardly
camera.
at his
He's
screen.
scrolling. That's literally on the camera. Dyson is asking a question,
No, he's not.
and he's
not
asking, "Who is your favorite Bob? Bob Wall, Bob Baker, or Bob Villa?"
Bob the Builder.
Yeah, that's crazy.
I
don't think any of
those
them-
of those three Bobs.
Yeah,
Bob Baker.
in order. Yeah.
Yeah, the Bruce Lee's drug dealer and grand student in Jeet Kune Do.
Okay.
Bob Wall, the late Bob Wall.
So Bob Villa is not above Bob
no, I would
Wall.
say Bob Vila out of that list would be my favorite one, right? If not for Bob Baker, Bruce Lee wouldn't have developed an unfortunate drug habit. Or I shouldn't say that.
That's speculation.
That's speculation.
Speculation all day.
Bruce wouldn't have been it wouldn't have been as easy for him to get those drugs. Let's just say at that time, it wouldn't have been facilitated as easily.
as easily.
Because it was not easy to get in Hong Kong. That's why he had to get it from the States. So, and then, Bob Baker was that guy. So without Bob
Speculation.
Baker, I feel.
Okay.
Yeah, but I'm telling you it is. I'm not saying it's fact. I am
Okay.
telling you it's speculation. All
Okay.
right. I feel that Bruce Lee would have lived longer had it not been for Bob Baker. Okay. So Bob Baker, not my favorite Bob. Bob Wall, all right? Bob Wall, this is actually not a bad Dyson question, all right? Shout out to Dyson.
Yeah.
Shocker.
Shout out. Shocker.
Shocker. Bob Wall. Bob Wall had his moments where he would be really cool and say very
Okay.
interesting things, and every once in a while, Bob Wall would bullshit and say stuff like he knocked out Sammo
What's your
Hung and stuff like that.
favorite Bob Wall role? Because he's been in countless movies.
My favorite Bob Wall. Well, that's because he always just kind of plays a
Yeah,
wooden
the
asshole
same dude,
who gets his
right?
ass
The same
kicked. Right?
asshole.
I mean, obviously, like, Enter the Dragon, I think, is the most interesting because Bob Wall in Way the Dragon, there's not really a whole. He's just like he's just Chuck Norris's student, and he just kind of gets his ass kicked.
Yeah, he didn't really do much.
There's nothing about his character
Yeah,
besides
yeah,
he's a white guy who
yeah.
does karate.
Yeah.
But at least in Enter the Dragon,
No
he was,
bruises or anything.
yeah,
on
at least
Bob
in
Wall?
Enter the Dragon, he was Han's bodyguard. He had the scar that he got when he killed Bruce Lee's sister from the old man and stuff like that. So I think that's the only time that Bob Wall's character had even like a backstory or any depth.
Okay.
So it's probably the most interesting one. But I kind of like him a little bit in Game of Death. Even though it's not really a Bruce Lee movie because, he's like, he's Carl Miller, the kickboxing guy. And then, and then after
In the locker room scene?
Yeah, after he wins the match,
That's so great.
he meets that blonde girl. He goes, "This is my new girlfriend. Take lots of pictures of her." And then he goes there, right? And it's like, it's kind of silly,
That's a
right?
funny one.
Yeah.
Say boards don't hit back. Maybe it should have been Bobs don't hit back.
Bobs don't hit back. All right. So I would have to say out of that
I
list,
think Bob Villa has the most bullets.
I think Bob Villa is the best out of all that.
Out of all, no.
Because you know what? If you ask me which one would I'd rather meet right now,
Wow.
I would say Bob Villa because we need to finish building that curtain up here, right? So I would actually want to consult Bob Villa on a bunch of things on fixing the school, right?
Okay.
Screw those other
I
Bobs.
think Bob Wall would be able to find the studs in these walls.
I think Bob Wall would come in here and he would
Yeah.
try to sell you his yellow gi that he wore in Enter the Dragon
Okay.
for the 15th time. Do you know how many times Bob Wall sold the uniform that he wore in Enter the Dragon to some unsuspecting rube?
That's
All right?
speculation.
No, it's true. And he actually and he did go to jail, I think, for tax evasion. Yeah. So the Bob Wall was a bit of a shady criminal. Yeah.
do you think he'll do it
People
now?
who knew him that don't really have the best.
You sure it was 15 though?
15 what?
Geez.
At least. All right. I'm not gonna tell you who, but there was a famous Bruce Lee biographer who came to me who had interviewed Bob Wall multiple times,
And he
was
bought
like,
one of those?
No, and he was saying you don't even want to know how many times Bob Wall sold his uniform that he wore in Enter the Dragon. All right. So it looks like he just
good
went
stuff.
to like a karate supplier,
Yeah.
got a yellow gi, and then just had a bunch of those patches put on there, and then he would just keep selling those things.
Wow,
And that's
what a
how-
scam. What a scam.
Yeah, and the most insulting, And you know the most insulting thing is he probably still had the original one the whole time.
The whole time. The whole. Oh my God.
So he would have to go to like Century Martial Arts, buy a yellow karate gi, put the patch on, wash the thing a bunch of times to fade it out, right?
Get some dirt going on.
Wash it and put like a bunch of rocks in the washing machine to beat it up, and then sell that thing, right? So anyway, shout out to the late Bob Wall. All right, so what's next?
Oh man. All right, let me scroll.
No, you already did this before.
Yeah.
You did this.
Next up, we got Axel Stone.
Axel Stone in the house.
Coolest
Actual
name.
real person for a change.
Yeah, no, but that's a
Yeah,
cool
an actual
name.
real person for a change.
He should be an MMA fighter with that name.
I know.
'Cause
And in this corner,
yeah.
Axel Stone.
I mean, that's the name.
It would be
That's
Axel
the name I'll pick.
Feet of Stone. Wait, is that actually a good? No, you don't want Feet of Stone.
That's not good. That's not a good.
Yeah, I was thinking of Roberto Duran, Hands of Stone, right? And then I'm like, oh, martial art feet of. Wait, no, you don't want Feet of Stone as a martial. Like, then your feet don't move anywhere, right? Okay, maybe that's not the
just
coolest
jacked
name.
up.
All right, yeah. Head of Stone. No. It's not
Okay,
even- all right.
so-
Body of Stone. I don't know.
Axel Stone. Thanks for making these available for us. I guess he's saying no non-Patreon subscribers, Alex.
Oh,
Question, how many students do you have at City Wing Chun?
no idea.
You have no clue?
No. If when people
You
are,
had to guess.
No, when people are new to, like, people don't know martial arts business,
Mm-hmm.
they always go, "Oh, how many students you have?" All right, because but no martial arts school actually measures their metric that way. I mean, you measure it internally, like how many students do you have? Because every month you have attrition, some students move or quit or whatever, and you got to make sure you kind of keep it steady, right?
Mm-hmm.
But that's not the metric, because what if one school had 20 students, okay? But each of those students paid $400 a month. And the other school has 50, but they're charging them $50 a month. So the problem is, like, it doesn't give you any metric of the health of a school. Plus, I know schools, for example, I had a seeing in Germany who had a huge school, but he had like a few hundred students. But I mean, I should say actually way more than that. He would have like 500 students.
All right.
But he would lose like 200 a month, and he would have to get 200 more. So, and
Ouch.
that went on for like 2 years. And
That
then,
is a lot.
yeah, and I was thinking like, first of all, I would retire
40%?
I would retire with that many students, and you would, and then you also have to go, well, why are you losing 200 students a month? And then you have to replenish those every month. That's a lot of work. If you keep your attrition rate below 5%, meaning like if you have 100 students, about 5 leave every month for whatever reason. But if you can keep that to 2 or 3%, then you only need to enroll 3 students a month.
Yeah.
You don't need to enroll 200 students a month to keep the thing running, right? So the metric's a little weird, right? Also, I don't manage the school anymore.
All right.
So I don't know, and it wouldn't matter. It wouldn't matter if it did. Also, the thing with I did release one Patreon only episode here on YouTube.
Yeah.
For people to see, but that's only one. I did that because we were shooting the lives. We didn't have a regular episode, so I did it as something for my fans. But it was 2 weeks after I had already released it on Patreon. That's the only time I'm going to do that. If you want to see those videos, bro, $5 on Patreon. Okay. All right. What's next?
All right, next up, we got Vincent Lai.
Awesome. Almost Vincent Lin,
I know.
right? Almost like my good friend Vincent Lin.
My head up.
Yeah, right? It's
that one.
you thought he had like forgot to put an end there, right?
I was like, yo, what's up with...
Yeah. All right. What's up?
with
What's the question?
What's up?
Nothing much.
That's his question.
That's
what's up?
Nothing much.
Oh, that's it.
That's the question.
Yo, we're chilling. All right, next.
I feel you didn't give that question enough of an explanation, to
I
be
think
honest.
there
I feel
should
like you
be
just
more.
glossed it over.
Should I break it down like we did the other one?
I think you should.
Yeah.
Okay, so let's talk about the etymology of what's up and the various forms.
I mean, that question is 1,000 answers in one.
Yeah, but it's also saying things like, you good? You know what I mean? Like, depending on the situation, depending on how you say that, it can mean a lot of things, right? Yeah. We good?
Remember that commercial? Waza.
Oh, you had to, though.
Jesus, don't start, don't
They
start.
had him
do it.
in the...
Don't start,
Don't
don't
do it.
start. Let's go. No earworms, please. Let's go.
All right, Kung Fu Janitor.
I love Kung Fu janitors.
He has more of a comment.
Great.
80s Bruce Lee.
Was
Which
it in all caps?
I love, yes, all caps and four
comment.
exclamation marks.
Comment of that magnitude
Yeah.
can only be said in all caps.
That's right.
With multiple exclamation points.
That's right.
80s Bruce Lee. I'm all for it. We talked about that a long time ago.
I love talking about
You imagine
80s
Bruce Lee like wearing like
I love it.
a beaded jacket.
Just imagine Bruce Lee as a villain in either one of the ninja movies or Van Damme movie.
No, you know, for me,
Come on.
when you see Bruce Lee's athleticism and you see Bruce Lee's ability, like that one clip from Enter the Dragon where he did those couple cha-cha steps there like that.
True.
No, man, can you just imagine a music video with Bruce Lee and Michael Jackson, the two of them? No,
That's where your brain goes?
yeah, that's where my brain goes. That's where my brain goes.
I was thinking, I want him to be a CI in Miami Vice.
With the shirts?
Yeah, with the shirts. You know what I mean?
I don't know.
No, because by that
Seeing
point,
him in,
at that point, his
on a
career is
boat,
kind
on
of
a
yeah,
speedboat
dude. Like he's a little.
Why is he like speedboat? Like is it
Speedboat
Bruce Lee on a speedboat?
with his
Some
hair
kind of
blowing.
absurd thing.
His hair blowing
Yeah.
with the collar blowing.
Yeah.
Yeah,
No,
absolutely.
but can you imagine like Bruce Lee in the Beat It video?
I can
When
see
they're
that.
having like that thing there and like
I
he
can
comes
see
in
that
like
as the bad guy.
yeah.
You know, it'd be cool. Bruce Lee as Terminator 2 villain. Oh, that guy. The villain
the
of
liquid
Terminator
one.
2.
What,
Yes.
so as Robert Patrick.
Yes,
Yeah.
that's Bruce Lee. You know, it's crazy. The Terminator, I believe, is Genesis. The guy, because there was a revamp of that, and the guy was kind of Asian in that movie. The guy that played.
There are only two
character.
Terminator films, Terminator
I know,
1 and
but-
Terminator 2.
I know,
All
but-
the other Terminator films do not exist. They
I'm-
make no sense. They destroy the
I
lore. They are
randomly
god-awful. There
came
is
across
only
that.
Terminator 1 and Terminator 2. There are no other Terminator films. Thank you. All right, next question.
100% agree.
Bruce Lee
Next
would be
question.
dope
Next question.
as that
Next
villain.
question.
Weirdo.
That's it. That's it for 80s Bruce
See
Lee.
what they did to the damn Terminator and those other. Stop.
No,
Stop.
forget
Salvation,
stop.
one of the
Forget
worst
about
things
that.
ever.
Jesus Christ. Don't even get me started. This is a Kung Fu podcast. Don't even get me started about what they did to Terminator. Let's go. Let's go.
Bruce Lee in a Prince
Let's
video.
go.
Prince video.
Stop trying to bring
Or-
it back. You already
I
ruined
know.
it. You already ruined
You already
it.
Bruce
ruined
Lee-
it. Dre,
No!
next
You
question.
already ruined it.
Dre, we have about 10 minutes left. Let's go. Let's keep it together. Keep it together.
Keep it together.
Jesus
Yeah.
Christ. Now
All
I'm
right.
reminded why I don't do these.
Linuxva or Linuxva.
All right. Linuxova.
Okay. These are great. this is not a
I'm not
question.
even saying anything.
This
He's
is
just
not
laughing.
a question. This is a
Dre,
comment.
can you please give me a question?
Ed O'Neill,
Al Bundy.
aka Al Bundy,
Yes.
is a black belt in Hawaiian Brazilian Jiu-Jitsu.
Okay.
Yeah.
There you go.
All right.
Okay, cool.
Actually, I'm gonna be a bit of a martial arts snob here.
Okay.
Shocker.
This is why I love
shocker,
these.
right?
I love
I don't think Ed O'Neill would want you to say he was a black belt in Brazilian Jiu-Jitsu. Forget the Hawaiian nonsense. Because he learned at the Gracie Academy. He would say he's a black belt in Gracie Jiu-Jitsu. All right? Okay. All right, next question.
First, I didn't even know Ed O'Neill did jujitsu.
Dude, he's a
Absolutely.
black belt. He's a very early student of Horian Gracie, way back in the day.
You knew that?
Oh,
Yeah,
yeah,
absolutely,
way
man.
back in the
Way
day.
back.
Yeah. There was a meme because, you know, Keanu Reeves started taking jiu-jitsu with the John Wick stuff. Maybe Keanu Reeves is like a blue belt. And then there was like a meme that says, I bet you didn't know Ed O'Neill could kick John Wick's ass.
Beat that ass.
Yeah,
Yeah,
no,
big
serious.
time.
Yeah, shout out to Ed
is all
O'Neill, man.
news.
No, shout out to Ed O'Neill. Yeah, absolutely.
What?
Yeah,
Oh, yeah,
yeah.
100%.
Al Bundy is black belt in Gracie Jiu-Jitsu.
So when, which one did Three's Company?
John Ritter.
Yeah. John Ritter was Three's Company.
Yeah.
You think Married
John-
with Children was...
Married with Children was
So
Ed O'Neill.
did Ed O'Neill train with him?
What?
What are you...
What are you talking about? There's never been. John Ritter never did martial
Not
arts.
John Ritter. I'm talking about Ed O'Neill training with your man that was on
Oh yeah,
Three's
yeah,
Company.
yeah. That's Horian. Yeah, yeah. What he's talking about,
Oh,
Horian
okay.
Gracie when he first came to LA.
Yeah.
had a little bit role in a Three's Company
He just walked up
episode
and-
where he just walked in. He was like the hunky date
Yeah.
of Chrissy
He
or
was the
something
date,
like that.
yeah,
right?
yeah,
Yeah. No, that's Hori and Gracie. Yeah,
And that's the
He's the
connection.
guy who put together the UFC. He's the guy who basically brought the Gracie name to the States. Yeah.
So dope.
And he's the guy who also created a lot of division between the other Gracies because he tried to trademark the Gracie name and tell other Gracies they couldn't use it even though it was their name and stuff. Yeah, it was fucking crazy.
Oh,
Fucking
families.
crazy. Yeah, families, right? Yeah. All right, go for it.
Okay. Next question is Amit.
All right.
This is not a question, this is a comment.
Jesus, will you give me a question, Dre?
I don't know. I'm quite liking these comments towards the end. It's kind of cool.
The pronunciation of my IG handle was spot on. In fact, way better than what some of my countrymen say. I wonder what he means by that.
What are you looking at me
Thank you for picking my cue. Saral Amit.
Awesome. I don't know when we did that though, and on what.
In this episode.
In this episode right now that we're
The
recording.
one that we're recording right now. No,
Spent
the
a year here one
Patreon. The
after the-
Patreon one.
All right. Okay.
All right.
You're welcome.
Let's
Yes,
keep it moving.
You're welcome. More than welcome.
Hi, KFG and team.
If this isn't a question, I'm going to face kick you with my kung fu high kick, which doesn't exist.
All right, well, let me scroll. Let me scroll real quick. Do you know something about Chao Se-chun?
Chao Tzi Chun.
Chao Si-chun? He was called the king of kicking.
Yes. The late Chao Tzi Chun was a student of Grandmaster Yip Man. He passed away a few years ago. His famous student is Sifu Donald Mak, who I've met before. He's in Hong Kong. Very nice guy. They emphasize in that particular line of Yip Man Wing Chun kicking. They have lots of kicks, and apparently that was Chao Tzi Chun's specialty, right? I've never met Chao Tzi Chun. He had another famous student named Stephen Chan.
So Chi-Gurk was his thing.
I suppose. I don't know. I mean, I only have some of their books. I don't know. I have like a lot of the videos, so I don't know. Stephen Chan, I think, was one of the more famous students of Chao Tzi Chun. He also did a couple movies, but Donald Mak seems to me to be like the premier guy representing Chao Tzi Chun's Wing Chun right now. I met him at Wang Kam Leung's party in 2017. Really, really nice guy. And what I like about him is he's very serious about his Wing Chun. He teaches it very professionally, and he's the example of, I think, the kind of proper professional ethical Wing Chun Sifu that teaches a very orthodox or traditional style. I think there should be more people like Donald Mak representing the various lineages of Wing Chun. So he's very professional. I like him a
Shout
lot.
out.
But I don't know a whole lot about the method. What I do know is Chao Tzi Chun back in the day had a student named Peter Chow. And Peter Chow,
heard of Peter Chow.
Peter Chow's, I'm sure
Is
you've
it?
met many Peter Chows, right? That's like, have you met John Smith? Peter Chow, who's a student of Chao Tzi Chun, I suppose it would have to have been in the 60s, moved to Connecticut in either the late 60s or early 70s. And Peter Chow taught Wing Chun in, I believe, Stamford, Connecticut, and was the Sifu of my two first students, the Leung brothers.
Okay.
So Elliot and Wei both learned Wing Chun from Peter Chow in like the early mid 70s, and they learned from Peter Chow. And so most of what I kind of know about Chao Tzi Chun is not directly about him, but kind of a little bit
student.
about his student
Okay.
who came to Connecticut in the 70s. Or 60s. Well, at least he was teaching by the early 70s. So I don't know his exact story. I know he's still around, though. I think he actually visited Elliot a few years ago. And he taught them, and they were quite scrappy at that time. And they would even, go around and mess with the other styles, right?
One of my boys, his brother learned under Peter Chow.
Really?
And you know of him.
Really?
You know of this guy.
Okay.
Yeah.
So those first two students I had in Connecticut, the Leung brothers, they learned from Peter Chow for a few years. And then according to them, Peter Chow just disappeared off the face of the earth. And then from about the mid-70s until they met me in 2002, they didn't do any Wing Chun. They were seeking Wing Chun, but they couldn't find any Wing Chun in Connecticut. And then they found me in 2002. And then they started learning from me. So two of my most
They
senior
found you in
students.
Connecticut. Right?
Because when I started teaching Wing Chun here in New York, I had a class out in Connecticut twice a week.
Right.
But I was just teaching at a dance studio there. And then eventually I handed over that school to Elliot. So the Stanford branch, the Connecticut Wing Chun or Club Kung Fu, is essentially the legacy of the classes I used to teach in Connecticut back in those days, right?
There you go.
And so Peter Chow was their Sifu. Now, what's interesting is that when Sifu Leung Ting first started coming to my New York branch to teach seminars, the Leung brothers came, and then of course, because they're Chinese, obviously Sifu Leung Ting is Chinese. They told Sifu Leung Ting we learned from Peter Chow in the 70s, right? Who was a student of Chao Ti Chun, and different Chow, by the way. Chao Ti Chun and Peter Chow. I think it's a different Chow character. There's a couple different Chow characters. One like Raymond, the common Chow, and then there's another type of Chow like Raymond Chow is a different type. It's a similar pronunciation, but a different character. And they said that they were like, they told Sifu Leung Ting like, oh, we learned from Peter Chow. Peter Chow's Chinese name is Chow Guo, and Leung Ting was like, he kind of like shuddered for a moment, and he was like, I remember this guy. And then they're like, really? Like, yeah.
Oh, no.
And then Leung Ting told this really funny story, which also shows kind of how petty Sifu Leung Ting could be sometimes. And he said that in the early 70s, before he made his big book, because everyone knows about Leung Ting's big Wing Chun Kun book that he made in the mid 70s, 76, 77, which was basically his version of Masoyama's big karate book, right? When you see Masoyama's big, like, this is karate book, and you look at Leung Ting's Wing Chun Kun book, it's basically
like
Leung Ting
twins.
just like, Leung Ting really liked the format and then made this kind of more overall kind of overview book about Wing Chun, right? But before that, he actually published a few, you can almost say booklets about Wing Chun in the early 70s. Now, these books are amazing because it was like Leung Ting when he was still young and still very enthusiastic. And he published these short books on different topics, like kicking techniques. He had a whole book on kicking techniques. What? He had a book on self-defense techniques, a book like Chi Sao, other things, right? And when you look at it, because Leung Ting has a bit of a reputation for, not openly teaching all of his best or advanced stuff. He kind of keeps it for himself, and you got to stay with him for a while before you learn it. But when you look at these books, he was showing like stuff out of the 8th set of the wooden dummy, like chain kicks and sweeps and throws, all like wild. You look at it now, and it's like this stuff was almost pornography for WT students in the 80s, because you wouldn't even be able to see this. He put this in books in the early 70s. From I think it was Kunwei Publications.
That is enthusiastic.
And I of course have PDF copies of all of these, right? Because it's pretty awesome. Man. So I knew the books that Leung Ting was talking about, and then he said in the 70s he published these books. And he said that Peter Chow came to his school in Hong Kong. And because I think Sifu Leung Ting would release one of these.
I don't know where this is going.
Yeah. Sifu Leung Ting would release another one of these little booklets, let's say every 6 months or something like that. I don't know the exact thing. I'm just kind of speculating here, right? And I think he was planning on coming out with a book that was going to show some even more crazy stuff or whatever, right? And then Peter Chow went to the Leung Ting gym, met Leung Ting, was like, oh, I really like your books. And I can't wait until your next book comes out because they're really helpful for my teaching, right? So then Leung Ting got the feeling like this guy was kind of reading his books and taking that stuff and just teaching it to his students. And then Sifu Leung Ting told me, with no shame or irony in his voice, he goes, that's why I stopped making those books.
Oh, my.
And I was like, oh, my God.
Wow.
Like, because like for me, it's like,
He
like,
is the reason.
yeah, he
we
was like,
don't
he
have
was like,
these anymore.
He was like, this guy was taking all my stuff and teaching it to his students as if it was his own. And first of all, I'm like, well, first of all, what do you expect? All right, I mean, like, when I once had some guy who calls himself a Wing Chun Sifu walk into my school once unannounced, just to have a chit chat and take a photo with me, right? And he asked me a question about footwork. And I gave him like a really cursory short answer. I'm like, oh, well, you can pay attention to this and, just like a couple little tips, right? And then he goes, then he goes, can I teach this to my students? And you have to imagine this was like just like it wasn't even instruction. I was just like saying something about footwork. And I'm like, well, I didn't really teach you anything, right? And then like 3 weeks later, Homeboy makes a video on YouTube where he's like teaching it as if it's his own, right? Now, first of all, I don't get upset. I don't go, oh, that guy's stealing my stuff, because he has no students and no one cares about him anyway. But for some reason, that kind of stuff really aggravated Sifu Leung Teng. And it was like, well, if you're going to write a book, you're going to have to, I mean, what's the point of writing a book?
If you're not teaching something.
If not to enrich what other people know, even if they're from other lineages or whatever, right?
That's good.
So,
stuff.
so I just found it was it was strange. But was crazy, even if it was true, because Leung Teng certainly doesn't feel that way anymore. He's since obviously published books on the wooden dummy and other stuff like that too, right? But maybe that's how he felt then, because it was in the early days of his career. He was very covetous about what he knew and what got out there. You know, he could have just been saying what he was like then. But I remember when he told me, it was so matter of fact. And it was just like, he is the reason why I stopped making those books. And he said it, I think, to the Leung brothers too. It was like, yeah, your old Sifu is the reason why I stopped making these awesome books. I was like, oh, it's not really anything about Chao Chi Chun, but that's about all I know about that. So we have time for one more.
What's on Mike D?
Let's make a quickie.
Make it quickie.
JP Steve Sahan Sham San.
Okay.
Sorry, JP. He's
right.
back.
He's back.
He's back.
Yeah. All right. Go ahead.
They say that working out in the morning is the best time to.
Yeah, I think it
is
is
a comment.
Good. Yeah. No, I think working out in the morning, doing your exercise in the morning is good. But again, exercise and when you train is an individual thing. Depends
What
on
if you're a
what
night
you like.
person?
Well, that's the other thing too, right? I personally find that getting up in the morning and getting my physical training, not necessarily my Wing Chun practice, but like my physical training, like my cardio and my strength and my movement and my flexibility, doing that in the morning, it really gets me, it really sets the tempo for my day, and I feel like I have more energy and I get through everything a lot easier. And then I'm also already like, I feel like I'm more coordinated when I do go practice. So yeah, if you've never tried it, all right, it might not work for everyone. But if you never tried it, I would definitely suggest try it for a couple weeks. Get up in the morning, do your exercises in the morning, and tell me how you feel later in the day. I think it really is the way to go. It doesn't mean you have to get up like crazy early or you have to do a big, crazy long workout. Just a little bit.
If you wake up in the afternoon because you work late or something like that, make your training the first thing you do.
I don't know about that because that wasn't the question. It was about training in the morning. I don't know about people who get up in the afternoon.
Some people's morning is in the afternoon.
Teach Kung Fu, which, Dre, that's a real job. And that's all I got to say about that. All right, everyone. Well, I hope you enjoyed that episode of The Kung Fu Genius. As always, don't forget to subscribe to The Kung Fu Genius, like this episode, share it on your social media, and if you have any questions for a future episode of the Kung Fu Genius podcast, put it in the comments below. And as always, I'll see you guys next time.
Word is I'm a kung fu genius. Technique speaks for me, not lineage. Forget Jet Li, cause I'm the one. Many call me seafood, but to you I'm Seagung. And I produce masters. You surpassed us. Your kung fu stiffer than corpse and caskets. City Wing Chun is the house I built. Violate the gate and your blood gets spilled. Alex Richter, always the victor.
Oh, make it a quickie. Let's get some fluff time as I search for a good one.
Just trying to say quickie, fluff time, Johnny Sins. You know what I mean? Mia Khalifa. Is this where we're headed?
What's going on with you degenerates?
What's going right with us? Well, I had a feeling you were going to fuck it up.
No, I didn't have that feeling. I was very in control today.
I was hoping for.
Yeah. Speaking of fuck-ups, now, your intro of Hot Nonsense from you too.
Oh, we all right? Hold on.
Oh my God, I'm dying.
No die. What time is your class?
My class is in 7 minutes. Jesus,
Okay.
he's fucking beet red. He looks like a strawberry. He looks
Looking like a
British
radish.
He looks like a British
British radish.
A beetroot.
a beetroot. Lots of gems.
Lots of Pamela Anderson.
No.
Lots of.
Dre, we seriously gotta do this.
Have you seen Pamela Anderson's
Dude, we didn't even
new
talk about Pamela.
Netflix
No,
documentary?
get out of here with that.
Oh, it's dope.
Out of here with that.
She's dope.
And Dre is really underemployed at the moment.
No, I just started Thursday.
All right.
New JOB.
Okay.
Got to have a
all right,
J.
Dre, focus. Here. Okay. So, all right.
Like a dog. All right, peeps. On today's episode of the Kung Fu Genius, the genius will be answering all sorts of hot nonsense from YouTube. Lots of gems, lots of Pamela Anderson documentaries.
Lots of high kicking in Kung
Lots of
Fu.
high kicking and all right, peeps. On today's episode of the Kung Fu
God.
Genius, the genius will be answering all
All right,
sorts
from
of
the
hot
top,
nonsense.
from the top.
Dude, you're coming in hot.
Yeah, you're coming in hot.
All right, peeps. On today.
Dre.
All right, peeps. On today's episode of the Kung Fu Genius, the genius will be. What you laughing at back there, man? What you doing? It's not helping. All right, peoples. All right, peeps. On today's episode of the Kung Fu Genius, the genius scum. Lots of gems, lots of high kicks in Kung Fu, lots of all the bobs in the world. Woohoo!
Well done.
Welcome back, everyone. Yo.
Yeah,
Bam!
Hercules.